Okay, we'll just start, whatever. We're started here with our, we just be, we're with Susan Sperry here. This is John Ross, the XPian Daily News Report for 419. And we have a special guest, Susan Sperry, the Executive Director of World Relief Chicagoland. And I am so happy to have Susan with us here. She's been with us before. She's a trooper. She's been this 2 or 3 times we've had her on, and she's just a great partner in the ministries, and she's got a great heavy load there with World Relief Chicagoland, and that World Relief Chicagoland includes Chicago, DePage, and DePage Aurora. So it's actually 3 different places, really.
Yeah. Well,
3
thanks so
different.
much, John. It's great, really great to be back with you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Susan. And we're going to give a little welcome, and we're going to have a welcome.
Thank you.
If we don't have a welcome, we got to have a welcome mat. They don't have a mat here, but they have this thing.
I love welcome, and welcome's what we're all about. Yeah.
I was just, we got a couple of topics we're going to be discussing with Susan, and maybe the first topic, maybe the most, I think we'll discuss the topic that's been in the news the last few days first, and then we'll go to the other bigger topics that are in fun and sound like fun and doing ministry things. I'm going to switch here, and one in the last week or something, it just got brought up that Biden was holding up this refugee presidential determination number, and it got going quite a bit with a lot of people. And I know the World Relief people, advocates, and others were trying to get that going and get that number that President Biden had promised earlier, about 60. Was it 62,500? Yeah, that's what it was, 62,500, I think. And that was just supposed to be getting back in the stream and maybe back to 125 in another year. So it was just sort of getting back, and it was not happening yet. And people were really questioning Elizabeth Warren, senator, and others, and several House members. And I know the World Relief people were too, and and I was, and I know Susan probably was too. We were all just wondering what's going on here. And so it came out, and Susan, what's your thought on this topic right now? It's changed in the last few days. I'll just bring that up 1 second. It changed in the last few days. It looked like it was going nowhere. It looked like it was going to be stuck at 15. But then the president sort of retracted and said, we're going to give a number by May 15th. That's basically all I know. And maybe you can add whatever you wish there, Susan.
Sure. Yeah, John. I think let's start with a little bit of context,
Right.
the backdrop that we're in at the moment. Currently, we're in the midst of the worst refugee crisis since World War II. So today there are 26 million refugees around the world, which is a crazy huge number. It's incomprehensible. And for refugees who fled their homes because of persecution, so a well-founded fear of persecution because of their race, their religion, their nationality, their political opinion, many refugees don't have options to return home or to stay in the country that they have fled to. And the US is among many countries across the world who have opened their doors, opened their arms to a small number of refugees each year. And historically, since 1980, the US has led the way in welcoming refugees and really set the pace for the world in offering welcome. And over the last several years, we've talked before here, John, that we've seen the number of refugees that the US is admitting decrease very significantly. So this year, the fiscal year that we're in, the past presidential administration, Trump's administration, set the ceiling, so the maximum number of refugees to be welcomed to the US, at 15,000 people. There are many, many reasons for that decision, but we know that the US has historically welcomed many more refugees. And we believe the US can continue to be a leader in this, both for humanitarian reasons as well as foreign policy and national security reasons. All of that comes into play. So with the Biden administration coming in, they had committed to increasing the number of refugees that the US would welcome this year. And the number that they had talked about was over 62,000, 62,500. And so last week, and really the last several weeks, we've been waiting on President Biden to sign a new presidential determination to increase that number of refugees. So Friday, when he signed it to keep the number the same at 15,000, that was a very disappointing move. And the key aspect that he did change on Friday that I want to highlight is where refugees can come from. So one of the reasons we've seen very few refugees actually arrive to the US this year, right now it's just over 2,000 refugees have arrived to the US this year. One of the reasons for that is that the places that were approved by the Trump administration's determination were very, only several places across the world had been approved for refugees to come from. So the change on Friday was to broaden the regions of the world that the US can begin admitting refugees from. And just keep in mind, many refugees that are coming right now have been in process to resettle in the US for years. It's a very lengthy process. There are a lot of security clearances, many interviews that people go through. And so for refugees to reach the point of being able to travel to the US means they've already been in the process for quite a while. And there are people who are ready to come right now who we're just waiting on the parts of the world that the US will accept refugees from to change. So that's a brief backdrop. And now to fast forward, what happened on Friday is that the administration kept the current number the same at 15,000, but they did commit to revisiting that and increasing the number of refugees who will be resettled this year. Hopefully we'll see that increase come closer to 60,000. We'll certainly be advocating for the administration, first of all, to make good on our commitment to resettle 15,000 people this year, and then to consider increasing that ceiling further as we prepare to welcome more people next year.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Susan, this seems to be a political problem. I believe if this had been done earlier, I think the Biden people got, I don't know, wimpy or chicken or something about this number of 62,500. If they had done it earlier, I think they're worried about the border situation, which is a different group of people, asylum seekers, and people got it together. And you want to explain the difference between asylum seekers and refugee status people?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and of course, I'm not in a position to know what the administration is thinking, but you're right, John, that there's a big difference between refugees overseas and asylum seekers at our border. But one thing that's not different is the types of persecution people are fleeing.
Well, that's true.
So refugees, and to kind of break down the difference between a refugee and someone who is granted asylum in the US, or an asylum seeker or an asylee.
Right.
The key difference is where they are located when they are given permission to come to the US,
Right.
and rebuild their lives. And refugees are given that permission when they are still overseas in a typically either a city or a refugee camp. Asylum seekers are given that permission and become what we call asylees once they have entered the U.S. And at that point, they apply for asylum,
Right.
and their case is ultimately heard by a judge who decides whether or not to grant them asylum or safety in the U.S. So both refugees and asylees, when they are given that permission to rebuild their lives and to be safe in the U.S., once they are given that permission to stay, they have the same status, essentially the same permissions here. And so when we talk about asylum seekers at the border, that's individuals who are fleeing a variety, typically a variety of circumstances.
Right.
Some are fleeing violence and government corruption. Some are fleeing extreme poverty. Some are fleeing family violence, and come to the U.S. to seek safety, to seek asylum, and ask for that. Now, not everyone who comes to the U.S. will be given asylum. There's
Right.
very sympathetic cases that ultimately will not be found uh, to meet the criteria under the law for asylum.
Right.
But there are many, many cases that people are presenting that are eligible for asylum. And what we're hearing about at the border right now is that there are many kids who are coming without their parents, children under the age of 18 who, for many different reasons, are coming by themselves. And the US government has a responsibility under our laws to provide protection for them and to not send them back to be very vulnerable to exploitation, either in the country they passed through, which is Mexico, or in the country that they come from. So, John, that's just a little bit of the difference between refugees and asylum seekers.
Yeah, and you can't really see this too well on the side. It's an article that was from the Religious News Service that the New York Times differentiated that the Biden administration was trying to pull these two together, that they're being overwhelmed at the State Department, which they use two different separate tracks. So it's really, that doesn't make no sense. And this, anyway, that's part of the story here, that they got them brought together, and I don't think that was a good thing. And that causes a lot of problems. And I had some friends talk to me about it, got confused on this. And then when we finally told them they were refugees we're talking about, with this 15,000 low number, then they understood more. But anyway, so the World Relief has had, I'm going to put up this site. World Relief's got some stuff on Facebook on this. You may, well, just go to World Relief on Facebook. It's probably the best way. And they're advocating an increase of these numbers, and I am too. And I have an article on that too. You can look at xpin.news on that. So anyway, we're trying to build up that number more near that 62,500. We're happy that it started got paused here with the Biden administration. A lot of people, our senator from Illinois, Dick Durbin, stood up, and others. So he's a real interesting man on immigration. He knows quite a bit on that topic, and he's tops on that. So let's go on to future things. You're going to have something coming up that's going to be called this week. I forgot what. Now my mind went blank here. What day that was going to be? What day is that going to be? Thursday?
Yes, it's Thursday, the 22nd.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a global gala coming up this week, and in non-COVID times, we'd be gathering all together to hear stories of impact, stories of the incredible things that are happening in our communities among refugee and immigrant families. This year, we're going to gather online once more. Hopefully, this is the last year that we gather online instead of in person. And we want to celebrate the impact that so many of our partners have had, our church partners, individuals we've partnered with over the last year to reach out and serve our refugee and immigrant neighbors. And you're going to hear, if you can join us that evening, we'd love to have you. It's a great opportunity to learn more about the work of World Relief. It's a fundraising event, so it's also a great opportunity to learn about ways that you can partner with World Relief and give to support your community. And it's a great evening to be inspired by stories of change and stories of people's lives, our neighbors' lives who have been changed in this season. So it's 7 o'clock on Thursday evening, the 22nd of April. There's a screenshot on the screen right now, and you can go to World Relief's website, chicagoland.worldrelief.org, to find a link to register, or you can go to our Facebook page, World Relief Chicagoland, and find a link to register as well. Thanks, John, for letting me share a little bit about that, and I hope you can join us.
Yeah, I think I signed up. If I remember right now, I was looking for my confirmation. I thought I did that a few days ago, but I sure will. That's at 7 p.m. on Thursday night, a virtual gathering, and it's going to be exciting to hear stories of what's happening. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sort of glad the way this. Let's get off. I'll get on. I'm on to politics quite a bit, but this political situation, I'm glad it's looking a tad better than it was a few days ago. So it makes me feel a little more Gala about the Gala, and I think there's hope, and I guess there's still commitment. I've heard that, so let's just hope it happens soon. And but we've heard commitment on that. But this is great to hear from different people from different backgrounds, different countries who've come to our area in the Chicagoland area. This is going to be just focused on Chicagoland people?
It is, yeah. It's focused on Chicagoland, and we'll hear some stories from some of our neighbors whose lives have been truly changed through the work that we do together at World Relief.
That's exciting. I like to hear those type of stories, and they'll be nice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. And
it's Thursday night, so
this Thursday night, and it's really a great time to come together as we expect to welcome some more refugees.
okay.
in the
Yeah,
year
that's right. We are going to get more refugees here. And I've been told not to drink coffee, but I'll drink some other drink, at least water on that night. We'll enjoy and sit back and listen to some good stories here of what God's doing in his world here. Susan, I want to ask you a little about, what's down the road. We're talking about hopefully more refugees and other things. What do you see for Chicagoland World Relief right now in the future, in the next months, the next year or two?
Yeah, I'd love to share a little about that, John. So at World Relief, we serve immigrant and refugee neighbors, and our whole purpose is to mobilize local churches to come alongside immigrants and refugees who are already in our community. So yes, we welcome newly arrived refugees, and at the same time that the majority of our work is alongside our neighbors who are either just at the early stages of rebuilding their lives in the U.S. or long term are seeking to build deeper roots in the U.S. And in our communities. So specifically, as we look ahead, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, where we see a lot of hope that we're emerging from that, and at the same time, many of our community members feel the weight of all that the pandemic has created, whether that's job loss, whether that's the isolation that we're all feeling these days. And we're also in the midst of a lot of vaccine education. So as we look ahead in the coming months, we're really looking at a reemergence from the realities we've been living in the midst of the pandemic. Some of that will take the form of helping people find jobs who've lost their jobs, helping people move into career paths if the job they currently have isn't giving enough money to be able to pay bills. And we're also looking ahead to prepare to be able to welcome more refugees who arrive to the U.S. And then finally, we're in the midst of preparing to grow our immigration legal services to meet the needs of more immigrants who want low cost, reliable immigration legal advice and help with the paperwork and the process that they want to go through and need to go through in order to either become citizens or reunite with family or adjust their status in the US. So those are a few areas that we're looking ahead toward in the coming months. There's much more I can add as we look at recovery from the pandemic, but I'll stop there for now, John, and I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing us up to date about legal things. Just reminded me that I was a volunteer on the I did volunteer a couple things mostly in the past, but we did the citizenship things, and that was exciting. The 100 questions and all that, and that's an exciting program. And then got involved with paperwork with like DACA and other things that there's helps needed, and that World Relief needs help in various areas like that. And the gala is going to be this Thursday, which will highlight some of the things that World Relief's doing. And
it will, yes, absolutely. It'll highlight that, and I'm glad you're bringing up volunteer opportunities, John, because there are so many ways that we can partner together and to serve our community. So we definitely are looking for and needing volunteers to tutor, volunteers to help with English practice, volunteers you mentioned to help with citizenship. All of this is much needed.
Yeah, it's a very broad scope here of things. It's basically helping the stranger, the refugee, the immigrant. Those are coming to America for the first time that need help, and they might be even language things too. So there's a lot of different angles here that Susan and World Relief Chicagoland is working on. So again, remember that Thursday night for that program, and global gala. I gotta get those G's there. Global gala that we're going to have virtual. So I just want to thank Susan for coming by, and just this little chat here we've had of some of the things that are happening at World Relief, and let's keep them in our prayers, and we'll be moving, and they'll be moving ahead here, hopefully with more refugees coming in, and there's going to be a lot of work, and Susan needs a lot of help and a lot of prayer there in the days ahead.
We do.
Yes.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much for having me, and to listeners, thank you for tuning in. I'm very grateful.
Yes, I appreciate that. And Wednesday, we'll hopefully have a guest at 5 p.m. We're not sure yet. We're still working. I've been working today on that, but we'll be working more on that. So, and look at the bottom of the screen for vaccinations, and get that going too, people. The test is with the phone number, and the other is what the VNA is to get a vaccination. We want to get our vaccinations. I know. Talked to Susan in the past. She's double dipped. I've double dipped. We've got our both vaccinations, so we're in good shape. We want you to get yours too. So again, Susan, thank you so much for coming by, and God bless everybody out there. And we'll just say we'll see you soon again. Bye bye now. Bye bye.